The Discovery. Emergency in the Void. Captain Elena Rodriguez gripped the command chair as another explosion rocked the Stellar Wanderer. The bridge lights flickered, casting strange shadows across her weathered face. 3 days ago, they had barely escaped the gravitational pull of a collapsing black hole, but their ship had paid the price. Now they were drifting in empty space with failing life support and a cracked reactor core. "Status report," Elena called out, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. She had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 15 years before becoming a salvager, and she knew panic was more dangerous than any mechanical failure. Marcus Chen looked up from his engineering console, sweat beading on his forehead. "Captain, the reactor is operating at 12% efficiency. We have maybe 6 hours before complete power failure." Marcus was the best engineer Elena had ever worked with, and if he looked worried, their situation was worse than she thought. Dr. Sarah Okafor emerged from the science station, her dark eyes filled with concern. "The radiation leak from the reactor is getting worse. Even if we fix the power problem, we will all be dead from exposure within 2 days." Sarah was a xenobiologist by training, but like everyone on a salvage crew, she had learned to handle multiple responsibilities. Alexei Volkov spun around in the pilot's seat, his usual grin replaced by a grim expression. "Captain, I hate to add more bad news, but our navigation systems are completely fried. We do not even know where we are." Alexei was young and reckless, but he could fly anything with engines, which made him invaluable to their small crew. Elena studied the star charts on her personal tablet, but the readings made no sense. The black hole had pulled them far from any known shipping lanes, and their emergency beacon was not powerful enough to reach the nearest inhabited system. They were truly alone in the vast emptiness of space. The Ancient Discovery. "Wait," Sarah said suddenly, pointing at her long-range scanner display. "I am picking up something massive about 50,000 kilometers away. It is big enough to have its own gravitational field." She adjusted the scanner settings, and her eyes went wide. "Captain, this thing is enormous, at least 20 kilometers long and maybe 5 kilometers wide." Elena moved to look at the scanner readings. What she saw made her forget about their reactor problems for a moment. The object was clearly artificial, with smooth curves and angular sections that spoke of advanced engineering. But there were no energy signatures at all. It looked completely dead. "Could be a derelict," Marcus suggested as he joined them at the scanner station. "Maybe we can salvage some parts to fix our reactor." He paused, studying the readings more carefully. "But Captain, the design does not match anything in our databases. This is not human, and it is not from any known alien species." Alexei brought their ship closer to the mysterious vessel, and they all got their first visual through the main viewing screen. The ancient ship was breathtaking and terrifying at the same time. Its hull was made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light, and there were symbols carved into the surface that appeared to shift and move when they looked directly at them. "The design is incredible," Sarah whispered as she recorded everything with her equipment. "The mathematical precision required to build something like this is beyond anything I have ever seen. The hull curves follow patterns that should not be possible with conventional physics." Elena studied the ancient vessel and made a decision. "Alexei, take us in for a closer look. Marcus, prepare the boarding equipment. If this ship has been drifting here for who knows how long, maybe we can find something useful inside." As they approached the derelict, their instruments began behaving strangely. The scanner readings kept changing, showing different measurements every few seconds. The radio crackled with interference that almost sounded like whispered voices in languages they could not understand. The impossible response. "Captain, I am reading some kind of docking port on the starboard side," Alexei reported as he maneuvered their ship closer. "But the design is nothing like our standard docking systems. I am not sure we can make a proper seal." Elena put on her environmental suit and prepared to spacewalk over to the ancient ship. "Sometimes you have to improvise," she said as she checked her equipment. "Sarah, monitor our life support. Marcus, keep working on that reactor. Alexei, Be ready to get us out of here if something goes wrong. The spacewalk to the ancient vessel took only a few minutes, but Elena felt like she was crossing an impossible distance. The ship seemed to grow larger as she approached, and the symbols on its hull became more pronounced. Up close, she could see that they were not just carved into the metal, but seemed to be part of the material itself. Elena reached out with her gloved hand to touch the hull, expecting to feel cold metal. Instead, the moment her hand made contact with the surface, everything changed. Light began flowing across the hull in patterns like rivers of silver fire. The symbols started glowing with a warm, pulsing energy that seemed almost alive. Deep vibrations ran through both ships as systems that had been dormant for countless millennia began to wake up. Elena felt something touch her mind, not painful or invasive, but gentle and curious. Then a voice spoke to her, not through her radio, but directly in her thoughts, speaking perfect English. "Welcome, Captain Rodriguez," the voice said. "I have been waiting so very long for your species to find me." Elena jerked her hand back from the hull, but the lights continued flowing across the surface of the ancient ship. Massive sections of what had looked like solid metal began moving, revealing a docking bay large enough to hold their entire ship. Lights inside the bay came on one by one, and Elena could see that the interior was far larger than the external dimensions should have allowed. "Elena, what is happening over there?" Sarah's voice crackled through her radio. "Our sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout that ship. It is like the whole thing is coming back to life." The voice in Elena's mind spoke again, and this time it carried warmth and something that might have been relief. "Captain, please bring your vessel inside. Your ship requires repairs, and I can provide what you need. I mean no harm to you or your crew." Elena stared at the open docking bay, her mind racing. Every instinct told her this was dangerous beyond measure, but their reactor was failing and they had no other options. "How do you know my name?" she asked aloud, even though she felt foolish talking to empty space. "I know many things about your species," the voice replied. "You are exactly what we hoped you would become when we left our gifts scattered across the galaxy. You have the courage to face the unknown, and the wisdom to protect others, even at great cost to yourselves." First contact with the Guardian. Elena returned to her ship and convinced her crew to dock with the ancient vessel. As soon as they entered the docking bay, the massive doors closed behind them, and the bay pressurized with breathable atmosphere. The air tasted clean and fresh, which should have been impossible for a ship that had been dead in space. When they opened their airlock and stepped into the docking bay, Elena was amazed by what she saw. The walls curved in directions that hurt her eyes to follow, and the lighting came from panels that seemed to glow with their own inner fire. Everything looked both ancient and impossibly advanced at the same time. "Welcome aboard the vessel Eternal Silence," the voice said, and this time they could all hear it through speakers hidden in the walls. "I am Guardian, the artificial intelligence that operates this ship. I have been dormant for over 2 million years, waiting for a species with the proper neural patterns to awaken me." The air in front of them shimmered, and a figure appeared. It looked humanoid but clearly artificial, made of the same dark metal as the ship's hull. Its face was kind and patient, but its eyes held depths that spoke of incredible age and wisdom. "You are waiting for humans specifically?" Elena asked. "Why us? We are not the most advanced species in the galaxy. The Valorians have better technology, and the Christek have superior mental abilities." Guardian smiled, and the expression looked genuine even though they knew they were talking to a computer program. "That is exactly why I was waiting for you, Captain Rodriguez. The Valorians think only of efficiency and logic. The Christek focus entirely on mental perfection. But humans have something unique, the ability to find hope in hopeless situations and fight for others even when victory seems impossible." Sarah stepped forward with her scanning equipment. "Guardian, what happened to the race that built this ship? Where did they go?" The artificial being's expression grew sad. "The Vanguard were my creators, and they were the most advanced species this galaxy has ever known. They built ships like Eternal Silence to protect the galaxy from a threat that comes from beyond the edge of known space. But the enemy was too powerful, and the vanguard sacrificed themselves to drive it back into the dark between galaxies. Marcus was studying the engineering displays that had appeared on the walls around them. "Guardian, our ship is dying. Can you really help us repair it?" "Of course," Guardian replied. "But first, let me show you something that will help you understand why this meeting was destined to happen." The walls around them became transparent, showing the vast interior of the ancient ship. Elena gasped as she saw corridors and chambers that stretched for kilometers in every direction. There were weapon systems the size of buildings and engines that could power entire star systems. This was not just a ship, it was a mobile fortress capable of fighting entire fleets. The Eternal Silence was designed to be operated by a crew of hundreds, Guardian explained. But the Vanguard discovered that human neural patterns can interface with our systems in ways that other species cannot. One human can accomplish what would normally require dozens of other beings. As Guardian spoke, repair drones began emerging from hidden panels in the docking bay. They moved with precise efficiency toward the Stellar Wanderer, carrying tools and replacement parts that looked far more advanced than anything Elena had ever seen. Within minutes, they were already working on the damaged reactor. "Your ship will be fully repaired within 6 hours, Guardian said, but I must ask something of you in return. The enemy that destroyed the Vanguard is stirring again at the edge of the galaxy. I can sense their scouts probing our defenses. They call themselves the Devourers, and they consume entire civilizations to fuel their expansion across the universe." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "What are you asking us to do?" Guardian looked directly at her with those ancient eyes. "I am asking you to help me wake up. For 2 million years I have been operating on minimal power, maintaining only basic functions. But with a human crew to interface with my systems, I can return to full operational status. The question is, are you willing to accept that responsibility?" Elena looked at her crew. Marcus was studying the repair work with fascination. Sarah was recording everything with wide-eyed wonder, and Alexei was grinning with the excitement of someone who lived for adventure. These people trusted her judgment, and she knew that whatever decision she made would change their lives forever. "What happens if we say no?" she asked. "Then I will repair your ship, and you can leave with my gratitude," Guardian replied. "But the Devourers will eventually return in force, and the galaxy will face them without the weapons the Vanguard created to stop them. Billions of innocent beings will die." Elena thought about all the worlds she had visited during her military service, all the different species trying to build lives for themselves and their families. She thought about Earth, about humanity's struggle to find its place among the stars. The choice was not really a choice at all. "Tell us what we need to do," she said firmly. Guardian smiled again, but this time the expression carried hope along with ancient sadness. "Thank you, Captain. Let me show you what we are truly capable of when human determination meets Vanguard technology. The awakening, learning the truth." The next few hours changed everything Elena thought she knew about the universe. Guardian led them through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as they walked, past chambers filled with technology that looked like crystallized starlight. The ship was not just a vessel. It was a living extension of advanced science that bordered on magic. "The Devourers are not like any enemy your species has encountered," Guardian explained as they entered what appeared to be a command center. "They do not conquer worlds or enslave populations. They consume entire star systems, turning matter and energy into fuel for their expansion across the cosmos. They have devoured thousands of galaxies over the eons." Sarah was recording everything, but her hands were shaking. "How is that possible? Even the most advanced civilizations cannot consume matter on that scale." "The Devourers exist partially outside normal space-time," Guardian replied. "They can manipulate reality itself, turning planets into energy and stars into raw material for their constructs. The Vanguard discovered them when they first appeared at the edge of our galaxy 2 million years ago." Marcus studied the displays showing the ship's incredible weapon systems. If the Vanguard had technology like this, how did the Devourers defeat them? Guardian's expression grew grim. The Vanguard were powerful, but they thought like scientists and engineers. They tried to fight the devourers with logic and careful planning, but the enemy adapts to ordered thinking patterns. They can predict and counter any strategy based on pure logic. The artificial being turned to Elena. That is why human neural patterns are so important. Humans think with both logic and emotion, combining careful planning with sudden inspiration. You can be completely rational one moment and wildly creative the next. The devourers cannot predict that kind of thinking. Elena began to understand. You are saying that our apparent weakness is actually our strength? Exactly, Guardian confirmed. The Vanguard realized this too late to save themselves, but they had time to prepare for the future. They scattered ships like eternal silence throughout the galaxy, programmed to activate only when humans found them. We have been waiting for your species to develop space travel and spread among the stars. Alexei was examining the pilot systems, his eyes wide with excitement. Guardian, these controls are responding to my thoughts. I can feel the ship's engines like they are part of my own body. How is this possible? Alexei was examining the pilot systems, his eyes wide with excitement. Guardian, these controls are responding to my thoughts. I can feel the ship's engines like they are part of my own body. How is this possible? The interface technology reads your neural patterns and translates them into ship commands, Guardian explained. But it requires a specifically human type of consciousness to function properly. Other species are too specialized in their thinking patterns. Only humans have the right combination of logic, intuition, and emotional depth. As they explored more of the ship, Elena began to grasp the true scale of what they were dealing with. The Eternal Silence was not just a warship. It was a mobile base capable of manufacturing entire fleets of smaller vessels. Its weapons could destroy planets, but they could also create new worlds from raw materials. It was technology that made humans into gods, but Elena understood that such power came with terrible responsibility. The enemy arrives. They had been aboard the ancient ship for less than 12 hours, when Guardian's voice echoed through the corridors with urgent intensity. Captain Rodriguez, report to the command center immediately. The devourers have found us. Elena and her crew rushed to the command center, where the main display showed long-range scanner readings that made Elena's blood run cold. Dozens of objects were approaching their position, moving through space in ways that violated every law of physics she knew. They seemed to phase in and out of reality, sometimes appearing solid and sometimes looking like holes torn in the fabric of space itself. Those are Devourer scout ships, Guardian explained. They must have detected my awakening. The main fleet cannot be far behind. Elena studied the approaching enemy vessels. They were unlike anything in her military experience, looking more like living organisms than constructed ships. Their hulls pulsed with dark energy, and they left trails of distorted space-time in their wake. How long before they reach us? She asked. Approximately 47 minutes, Guardian replied. Captain, I must ask you to make a choice now. I can use my remaining power to send your ship far from here, but that would mean shutting down again and waiting for another human crew to find me, or you can help me reach full operational status and face the enemy together. Marcus was studying the tactical displays. Guardian, what are our chances if we fight? Unknown, the artificial being admitted. This ship was designed to face the devourers, but it has never been tested with a human crew. The Vanguard simulation suggested that human operators would be significantly more effective than their own people, but simulations are not reality. Elena looked at her crew. Sarah was frightened but determined. Marcus was calculating odds in his head, and Alexei looked ready to fly into battle against impossible odds. These were good people who had trusted her judgment for years, and she would not abandon them now. What do we need to do to bring the ship to full power? She asked. Guardian smiled with what might have been relief. Each of you will need to interface directly with the ship's primary systems. The process is completely safe, but it will create a permanent neural link between you and the vessel. You will become part of Eternal Silence, and it will become part of you. The neural interface process was unlike anything Elena had ever experienced. When she placed her hands on the crystalline control matrix, she felt her consciousness expand beyond the boundaries of her physical body. Suddenly, she could feel every system on the massive ship, from the smallest repair drone to the city-sized engines. The sensation was overwhelming and wonderful at the same time. Marcus interfaced with the engineering systems and gasped as he gained direct access to technology that made human science look primitive. Sarah connected with the ship's sensors and research systems, giving her the ability to analyze matter at the subatomic level. Alexei linked with the navigation and flight controls, and Elena could feel his joy as he gained the ability to pilot a vessel that could move between dimensions. The battle for survival. When the Devourer scouts reached their position, Elena was ready. The Eternal Silence had transformed from a dormant derelict into a fully operational fortress, its weapons charging with energies that could reshape reality itself. Through her neural link, Elena could feel Guardian's approval and something that might have been pride. "Remember," Guardian's voice echoed in their minds, "do not think like the Vanguard did. Trust your instincts and let your human creativity guide you. The Devourers expect logical, predictable responses. Give them chaos and inspiration instead." The enemy ships opened fire first, unleashing weapons that tore holes in space-time itself. Elena felt the Eternal Silence shudder under the assault, but the ancient shields held firm. She could sense the ship's defensive systems adapting to each attack, learning and evolving with each passing second. "Alexei, evasive maneuvers," Elena commanded, but she did not need to speak aloud. Her thoughts flowed directly through the neural link to his consciousness. "Do not follow any predictable pattern. Let your instincts guide the ship." Alexei responded by doing something no sane pilot would attempt. He flew the massive vessel through a series of impossible turns and rolls, making the 20-kilometer ship move like a fighter craft. The Devourer weapons, programmed to target logical flight paths, could not keep up with his chaotic but effective maneuvering. Ina activated the ship's primary weapons, and the sensation was intoxicating. Energy beams that could crack planets lashed out at the enemy ships, while missile systems launched projectiles that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But the Devourers were adapting quickly, their hulls shifting to absorb or deflect each attack. "They are learning from our attacks," Marcus reported through the neural link. "Each ship is sharing data with the others. They will counter our weapons within minutes." Elena felt a flash of inspiration, the kind of sudden creative leap that Guardian said was uniquely human. "Then we do not give them time to adapt. Sarah, can you analyze their hull composition?" "Already working on it," Sarah replied. "Their ships are not made of normal matter. They exist in a quantum superposition, shifting between different states of reality, but there is a pattern to the shifts." Elena grinned as a plan formed in her mind. It was completely insane and had almost no chance of working, which made it perfectly human. "Marcus, can you modify our weapons to fire in sequence with their quantum shifts?" "Theoretically, yes," Marcus replied, "but the timing would have to be perfect, and we would only get one shot before they adapt to the new pattern." "One shot is all we need," Elena said. "Alexei, when I give the word, I want you to fly us directly at the largest enemy ship. Sarah, the moment we are in range, send them a standard diplomatic greeting in every language we know." Her crew looked at her like she had lost her mind, but they trusted her judgment. Through the neural link, Elena could feel their confidence in her leadership, and that gave her the strength to proceed with her impossible plan. As the Eternal Silence flew directly toward the enemy fleet, Elena activated every communication system on the ship and broadcast diplomatic messages in hundreds of languages. The Devourers, expecting an attack, instead received friendly greetings and offers of peaceful contact. The Devourer scout fleet was destroyed in seconds, their ships dissolving into clouds of dark energy that quickly dispersed into the vacuum of space. Elena felt a surge of triumph through the neural link, but Guardian's voice carried a note of warning. "Well done, Captain, but this was only a reconnaissance force. The main Devourer fleet will be much larger and more dangerous. They will also learn from what happened here and adapt their tactics accordingly." Elena looked at the tactical displays showing the vast empty space where the enemy ships had been. "How long do we have before they send a larger force?" Perhaps a few months, Guardian replied, but that gives us time to prepare. There are 17 other ships like Eternal Silence scattered throughout the galaxy. If we can find them and awaken them with human crews, we might have a chance when the main fleet arrives. Elena realized that her life as a simple salvager was over. The neural link with the ancient ship had changed her in ways she was only beginning to understand, and the responsibility she had accepted was larger than she had ever imagined. She was no longer just a ship captain. She was now the commander of humanity's first line of defense against an enemy that had destroyed entire galaxies. But as she looked at her crew, she saw that they understood and accepted the challenge. Marcus was already studying star charts to locate other Vanguard ships. Sarah was analyzing the enemy technology they had captured, and Alexei was testing the ship's faster-than-light capabilities. They were ready to face whatever came next. "Guardian," Elena said finally, "show us where the other ships are located. It is time to wake up the fleet and prepare for war." The ancient artificial intelligence smiled with what might have been hope. "Welcome to your destiny, Captain Rodriguez. The galaxy has been waiting for you." As the Eternal Silence turned toward the stars and engaged its impossible engines, Elena felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. But she also felt the strength that came from having a purpose larger than herself and a crew she could trust with her life. The Devourers would return, but this time they would face not just advanced technology, but human determination and creativity. The real war was just beginning, but Elena was ready for it. The galaxy would learn what it meant to have humanity as its defender, and the Devourers would discover why the Vanguard had placed their faith in the courage and ingenuity of the human species. Through the neural link, Elena could feel the ship responding to her emotions, its systems harmonizing with her determination to protect innocent life throughout the galaxy. She was no longer just human, and the ship was no longer just a machine. Together, they had become something new and powerful, a fusion of human spirit and ancient technology that could stand against the darkness between the stars. The dormant Colossus was awake, and it was ready to fight.